Welcome to Front Range Facts. This is Anthony Meisner.
And this is Jim Merrion.
We just wanted to bring you the national news, and Jim's going to give us the rundown for June.
Yeah, Anthony, it's another example of just the prices are continuing to see a new level threshold of being up high. And so the median sale price for new construction homes was $372,400 last month, according to the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. Basically, the all-time high was in January at about, $1,000 higher, but we're right scraping at the top of a new record there. Prices are up 20% from the year prior when the economy was in lockdown. And the executive chairman of Lennar Corporation, Lennar is the nation's second largest home builder, Stuart Miller, there said that after years of underbuilding, which are essentially all his fault, they're going to keep prices supported at these higher levels for the foreseeable future. And he also added an interesting point that from his perspective, the increase in single family for rent homes is contributing to the inventory problem. And that's something we haven't really seen here in the metro area of Denver, but nationally, I have heard of some communities now being built that are single family homes, but are all just being built to be rented out. And so he thinks, at least in some areas, that that's kind of contributing to low inventory problems. But at the end of the day, it's all, Lennar's fault for not building enough to begin with. A recent report from the National Association of Realtors found that the U.S. housing market needs now 5.5 million more units to fulfill demand. So next time someone's asking you, how come this bubble is not going to pop? Just tell them it's because it's more of a vacuum and not a bubble.
That's right. Those aging millennials, they all need houses, and they don't have anywhere to live. So it's creating quite the problem.
Yeah. And, new listings in June increased 5.5% year over year and 10.9% compared with May. And, that's really, I think, the more important number to look at is that, one for comparing May to June versus year over year. Last year, of course, with the after effects of the lockdown, everything gets a little weird with the data. But, basically a pretty good bump in increase in active inventory. So we're starting to see a little bit of a shift towards buyers, but at the same time, just that massive amount of demand is still causing it to be a seller's market. And among the 10 largest markets across the country, they've seen a 20% or more increase in inventory from a year ago. Now, the inventory of homes for sale was down, though, 43% year over year at the end of May, representing 415,000 fewer homes for sale on a typical day in June. But it is, an improvement from the more than 50% declines that we saw earlier in the spring market. And Fannie Mae's chief economist, Douglas Duncan, said that housing's been booming. By our estimate, house prices are up 10.4% over last year and are already up by 10%. They were up 10.4% last year, and now they're already up 10% in the first half of this year. So we should continue to see, starting probably again in September, prices go up again. I imagine we're going to be a little flat for the rest of the summer, as is usual. And I think this year is a little bit following more of that seasonal focus a little bit, because we're starting to see a little slowdown for the midsummer months now.
I think the biggest way to kind of take away with that is, since we're in such an extreme, increasing market in the first half of the year, it's not necessarily going to continue to be so extreme when there's finally inventory coming on the market. And, the nation as a whole is really, people are traveling more. There's all this other stuff going on in the market to reduce buyer demand and kind of slow that growth for at least the summer market. So it may be really, really consistent this summer, but it's not necessarily going to keep skyrocketing at the pace we've seen, in the first 6 months.
Yeah, and that's healthy,
Absolutely. And with, what we're seeing from showing time, there's a couple of things that are pretty incredible. We're seeing all the showing traffic in, the Western region and, of course, the entire United States be up, 40, 50, 60% in any region here. But we are starting to see that a little bit slower this year than it was for June of 2019 or 2020 in Colorado. So that is definitely a promising thing if you're a buyer in this marketplace, no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'm Anthony with Land Title, and just wanted to give you shameless self-promotion. If you need to get a hold of me for any reason at all, 303-968-9868 or ameisner@ltgc.com.
And I'm Jim Merrion, Realtor here at Coldwell Banker. My phone number is 303 888-548-0243. And I can also be reached at jim@ourcoloradohomes.com.
Don't forget our podcast runs in the national format, and then we start getting into Colorado and local markets. So stick around. If you need to get a hold of us for any reason on the show, frontrangefacts@gmail.com. And don't forget our other podcast, Get Real with Blockchain. You can get that anywhere you find your podcasts.
Yeah, we just had a really cool little interview with Elliot Eisenberg, the bow tie economist, talking a little bit about government, cryptocurrency, and other topics like that. So check it out. It was a fun little interview.
Absolutely. That was a good one. Here's what I was talking about with Colorado. So you can see here in 2019 and 2020, kind of where the trend in showing traffic was going. It looks like, we really started to see slowing traffic for showings. It was really consistent with, the market last year and the market in 2019 for a while there. But in the month of May, it actually really, the month of June, it actually was substantially down. We're talking, 10, 20% off of where it normally would be. Surprisingly, that shouldn't really shock anyone with, the world opening back up, people being able to take advantage of some of that other stuff, even if they just short term are pumping the brakes. That's something that we should definitely keep our eye on. But not such a bad thing for buyers, right? Because buyers have had such a hard time getting this really low inventory situations under contract, and we could definitely use more inventory on the market.
Yeah, I think there's some buyer fatigue, but Anthony, I think you really nailed it. Just anecdotally, all the clients that I've been working with, there were so many of them who just in around Memorial Day weekend going forward decided, hey, I'm finally going to visit family for the first time in 2 years, basically, getting out there, doing some stuff. So I think that the summer travel started earlier this year and with more gusto. Certainly a lot of people just deciding, hey, I'm going to finally make the effort to visit old family I couldn't see for a long period of time.
Absolutely. I mean, look at the dip for Memorial Day. It's usually like a slight little bump on the radar, and we have this major just cave. I think that's exactly what's going on. And you're going to probably see that through a lot of the summer. But what that means is the fall market's going to be very similar to the summer market as far as number of sold, showing traffic, a lot of that. So we're going to be probably in a bit of a plateau this year instead of like a very seasonally heavy, spring and summer market and low fall and winter months. So definitely don't panic about the market stopping, because we're still seeing just outrageous stuff happening. We'll kind of get into that here. If you look at the statewide data, I mean, you can really see just how much the state of Colorado is outperforming the nation as far as, over asking price offers. And just look at our inventory level, 0.6 months of inventory in single family home market across the state of Colorado. It's 75% down from a year ago. I mean, there is nothing left to buy in the state of Colorado. And keep in mind, Metro, Denver, and a lot of the Front Range is actually less than the state average, right? So it's just getting pretty incredible. The other thing that is worth noting, whether you look at it from year-over-year numbers, and we're up 38% in average sales price, or even on our year-to-date numbers where it might make a little more sense because we're probably not increased a house by 38%, right? We had a lot of jumbo loans fall apart. There's a lot that went into why that number is so extreme. But we are seeing just a really high increase in our sales prices and the average home value.
And I just think that the fact that the sold listings is up 21.5%, it shows, a very good reason as to why prices have risen so much. Is there's that demand right there. 21.5% increase in sold listings.
Yeah, 6,000 homes already this year. I mean, that's a lot more homes when we barely have 6,000 homes coming on the market in the metro area in a month, right?
Yeah. And, it's not surprising to see, the pending, but, I think just the sold listings, that alone says it all right there. So.
Absolutely. So if you look at the townhouse condo market, of course, this is becoming very, very similar to the detached market, where 0.6 months of inventory, they're now running pretty much completely in parallels, where if you can't find a detached house, you're looking in attached, or vice versa, because the inventory shortage is so bad. That wasn't necessarily the case 6 months ago. There was a lot more opportunity in attached, but that inventory is completely eroded. And look at that, we're up 40% in sales year to date for the attached market. Now, that's not to say that we were in a shutdown part of last year, right? So these numbers are going to be artificially high right now, and then by the end of the year, they should come down quite a bit. But just based off of what we had or what we were dealing with last year, it's pretty extreme.
Well, what I find interesting about this though is that the single family and attached both have increases in sold listings this year and things like that. But the sold listings jumping so much on attached this year compared to last, it really reflects that mentality of, hey, I'm stuck in my home. In last year, people were still going to buy single family, but the townhome condo market really took a short-term hit. There was
Yeah, look at this.
breaking
I
put
mean,
on. Yeah.
in May last year, we were down to 1,400 sales statewide for attached units, and we're back to 2,800, which is probably more than we were at in 2019, right? So, yeah,
Well,
the
you
hit
had,
we took during COVID was pretty extreme.
yeah, and you had the George Floyd protests too, that were like, taking the metro areas of everywhere, offline kind of for a few weeks with the market. So people were kind of afraid to even go downtown in some cases.
Yeah, I mean, and you can really see just how hot this market is right now. We're at 103% listed sale price statewide, which is way above the national average. And wait till you get into metro area where it looks even more extreme than that, right? So,
Yeah.
Good news for the state of Colorado, as usual, outperforming the national market and just low inventory everywhere, right? So if you're a homeowner, you're definitely reaping the benefits here. This is the one that I added this time because I think this is worth talking about. We're in such unprecedented territory here with single family and condo that when people are paying this much over asking price, so we're talking, 104.4% single family, 103% in the townhouse condo market in May. This is by far the most extreme sellers market we've seen probably in our lifetime. And it's very possible that it will be the most extreme sellers market we ever see in our lifetime, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of buyers who really hope so.
I mean, yeah, as a buyer of any real estate, I would hope so too.
Yeah, because you went through the ringer recently too,
Yes, I did, and I feel the pain for sure. Well, I'm Anthony with Land Title, and that is our section on Colorado. We're going to get into the local market here in just a second. If you need to get a hold of me for any reason, my cell is 303-968-9868.
Again, Jim Merrion here, realtor with Coldwell Banker. I can be reached at jim@ourcoloradohomes.com, or feel free to give me a call on my cell phone at 303-548-0243. There's a lot of spammers who call me, so don't be shy by calling me. People do it every day, it seems.
For sure. Jim, what's going on here?
Well, we've got a lot of pretty colors and circles, Anthony.
That's basically all I see. No, just kidding.
so this, basically the SMEDR, the South Metro Denver Realtor Association, taking a look at, their data for the metro area specifically. So we've got a huge 2 weeks of inventory of homes. It's not quite a lot at all. Median sale price 535. And what's just kind of remarkable is, again, we had weird stuff last year, but the median sale price in 2020 in May was 435. So the median price has increased by $100,000 year over year, which is remarkable by any standards, so it's quite high. And then the new listings right now are, quite a bit lower than they were last year at only 6,145. And our pendings are up about 400 more than they were at this time last year, which, again, that's not a shocker with that information. But yeah, it's another, just example of how the metro area is very, very strong for sellers.
Yeah, I think it's probably one of the most popular places in the country. I read something a little while ago that said we were number 2 strongest real estate markets in the country behind Connecticut. So it was Elliot Eisenberg telling us that, in fact.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah,
it was. All right. So if we get into some of the other local Denver metro stats, you can really see just how extreme the market is here. In this green line here, our supply line, we are at our record lowest inventory levels ever in Denver metro. And now where our pendings are still surging and about as high as they have been in the past few years, right? So very, very high, very strong numbers, which means every single home that goes on the market is coming off the market just like that, right? So this is what's driving up that average sold price 26% year over year. A lot of that has to do with the lack of, kind of high-end inventory that's sold. So you may not have made 26%, but it's very possible you're going to make 20% over the course of the year.
But there is a little light at the end of the tunnel, because just looking at some of the unpublished June data, there's certainly more inventory we've been seeing kind of enter the market a little bit, and I think that, with the people traveling, as you said, it's going to take that absorption rate down a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. If you want to look at it more of like by price point, which is probably more how, the average consumer is going to look at it, because if you're buying a house at 500,000, you really don't care what's going on in the $1 million market. You want to kind of compare apples to apples. So if you look at this, you can see that, there was an active 291 units of inventory at 500,000, but over 1,000 units sold for the month. So what that means is there's literally a week of inventory and they turn over every week, right? So you can see just how incredible the luxury market is doing here. The sold market over 500,000 is just booming, and where there is no inventory in that median home buyer market, or even a little bit less than median, those sales are really, really suffering this year because not enough of that inventory has come active, and it's just so ultra competitive. And not only that, but the tide is rising, so there's less homes in these price points than there ever used to be, because we're not building affordable housing as much as we used to in the past. So those are creating quite a bit of problems. This is how extreme it's getting in the Denver metro area, though, is that in those lower price points, you're running about a week of inventory on the market, which means every week there's a new set of houses to go look at. So I guess that's good if you're a buyer, because there's a lot of inventory coming on. But if you're a seller, you hold all the cards, right? So if you're under 4 months of inventory, it's considered a seller's market. And since we're at, 0.4 months of inventory or 0.2 months of inventory, 20 times less inventory than like a balanced market might be. Yeah, it's getting a little ugly for buyers, but there is definitely some light at the end of the tunnel for that. And it's probably also not too late if you're a seller to get your house on the market and still get some top dollar stuff going. This number right here, that 8 days on market, 8 days in the MLS, is just pretty incredible. Just
I think that the fact that the $3 million plus average days in the MLS is at 8 days, that kind of is shocking, because that's, normally the longest days on market, it takes usually longer to sell very expensive homes, and to see it at 8 days on market just is it's shocking. It's
goes
shocking.
to show you just how much buyer demand there is. It doesn't matter the price range, right? There's a lot of people moving to Colorado now that you can work remote. There's all kinds of things happening. So this is creating, that buyer frenzy at literally every price point, because normally we would see our 3+ million well over 100 days on market, but not in the last year. It just doesn't seem like that's happening. So
No, not at all, not at all.
All right. Well, we're going to move over to the local Front Range market, starting at the top with Fort Collins all the way down to the Springs. I'm Anthony with Land Title. You can always reach me at ameisner@ltgc.com.
And I'm Jim Merrion, Realtor at Coldwell Banker. Feel free to call me at 303-548-0243 or jim@ourcoloradohomes.com.
All right, Jim, what's going on in Larimer County?
Well, we've got, listings year to date. The year over year stuff is kind of hard to track. So, the year to date is more important. And our listings are down in single family homes by close to 11% for new listings this year versus through this time last year. But the solds are up 28.5%, which is a huge number. And that's not just because there's a dip in the COVID last year, with that. It's reflecting, of course, in the fact that the median sale price is creeping up to 14% year to date, is an increase overall for single family homes. And, days on market dropped from 70 days last year, to this time, up to now only 51 days this year. So very solid. And of course, too, in the attached market, those condos and townhomes out there, seeing the median sale price increase pretty, similar at a 15.6% increase year to date. And new listings have increased. It's kind of nice to see a little bit of that pressure release with new listings coming on at 7.4% more listings than was year to date last year. But a lot of that's being eaten away because the sold listings have increased by about 23% as well.
I think a big takeaway here is just how similar the entire Front Range market is feeling at this point, right? The attached units, detached units, they're all kind of running in parallel. Every market's going at these just outrageous 104%, 102% list sale prices. And Larimer County is definitely no exception, all the way up on the northern side of the state. If we get over into Weld County, same basic picture, right? I mean, the inventory in Colorado, people are looking everywhere, and they're really willing to go a little bit farther to find stuff right now because they're just not having a choice. So when you see, look at this, sold listings in the townhouse condo market for Weld County are up 40% year to date. And a lot of that may have had to do with, new inventory coming on the market. It may also have had to do with people hit the pause button a little bit during COVID with the attached dwellings. But, we're still sitting 20% over on the sold listings for single family. So everything's more competitive across all spectrums. And it's kind of the moral of the story, right? Less than a month of inventory everywhere we go in every marketplace. These are all running very similar at this point, which we don't normally have that conversation, right, Jim? Like we literally usually get to talk about how different all these marketplaces are.
Yeah.
But at this point, everybody's going up 10, 12, 15, 20% in their average sales prices. And Weld County, Larimer County is definitely no exception to the rule.
Well, and everywhere you go, the new construction, for example, has wait lists of hundreds of people deep. So I mean, there's so much demand everywhere that they're bleeding into other markets. People who originally were only going to focus, say, and live in the Denver metro area, start looking in Weld because it's more affordable. So suddenly that pushes the demand up in places that normally would have some variability to it all.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look in Boulder County is no exception, and it's even more extreme than a lot of the other places because a lot of really wealthy people really want to live in Boulder right now for some reason. I mean, look at this, 3+ million homes. We're at almost 50 homes sold this year, 400% more than it was a year ago. I mean, the luxury market in Boulder County is out of control. I mean, there are more homes selling in the luxury markets than there are in some of the bottom markets for the first time. Like, look at this, 1.5 to 2 million, 28 sales. You didn't even have 28 sales under 300,000 total, right? So this is a very extreme shift. And a lot of that has to do with just the inventory that's available. Because if you look at this, I mean, look at these active units, 19, 19, 19, 19, under 500,000, right? And that's combined detached and attached. It's condos, townhouses, everything. Yeah. There's just nothing on the market, and they're turning over so quickly that those average medians, they're really getting pushed to some of those other counties like Weld and Broomfield. And,
well, it's indicative of really, I think, the shift in Longmont and Lafayette, which are typically more of the value buys before. They've just gone up so much that it's harder and harder to find anything in the 400s. For buyers, to get anything decent, you're looking in the 5, 6, 7s really quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can really see just how that active units have shifted over this year. We're down anywhere from 60 to 75% in any one of those price ranges in Boulder County. There's just nothing available. So of course, luxury is booming because there's inventory available for that to happen. And those lower price points are suffering even more extreme than we saw in the Denver metro area.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You go over to this, month supply of inventory and average days on market. Surprisingly, I mean, it shouldn't really be that surprising, but Boulder County actually has a little bit more inventory. It has kind of all year, but the luxury market is actually doing better than it is in the metro area. So there's less inventory in luxury. The days on market, everything is very paralleled where it doesn't matter your price point at all in Colorado at this point. There's so much demand at every price point that they're all feeling very, very competitive. So we're seeing that at pretty much every price range, every area, right? It's pretty extreme.
But, and it continued to just show that $3+ million price point, having 6.3 months of inventory when, I think, probably at the start of 2020, we were talking 18 months of inventory or something like that.
We were in May last year, we were literally at 30 months of inventory in 2020.
Well, but that was, partly reflective of just the jumbo fiasco with not having jumbos. But I want to say at the beginning of 2020, we were at like 18 months of inventory or something like that, just, before that. So yeah, it's amazing just how quickly not only the prices shot up, but how much more demand for higher end homes from out of state buyers is driven and fueled that fire.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. What about El Paso County, Jim? What's going down on that front of the Springs?
Well, it continues to be the place to put your money if you want to be an investor. I mean, it's just remarkable to see that the median sale price for single family homes is at 19.5% increase in the sale price, and the median sale price for attached and condos, townhomes at about 22% increase in price. Is just remarkable gains that are going on there. So it's no surprise to see that the days on market just is a whole 8 days on market for townhomes and condos, and 13 days for single family homes, because it's all getting eaten up immediately. And they have had less inventory. Their inventory levels are down about 2% for new listings for single family, and down about 5% for attached. So there isn't really much in the way of any supply coming on the market.
And look who takes the cake for the month, right? 105.1% list sale price down there. It's no wonder that those prices are skyrocketing. Plus, now where median home sale prices are over 400,000 and those median condo prices are 300,000, that market is not that cheap anymore, right?
It's not. It's going to be interesting to see whether I think we might be seeing that because this is more of a price parity year for the Springs. It's bringing it more to kind of what the Front Range as a whole has had. Be interesting to see if this starts to not be the rocket fuel area going forward in subsequent years. Because people were moving down there just to save some money on purchase price, but now there's less of an argument for that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Anthony with Land Title. You can always reach me on my cell phone if you have any questions, or on my email, 303-968-9868, or ameisner@ltgc.com.
And again, Jim Merrion here, Realtor with Coldwell Banker. My phone number, 303-548-0243. My email is jim@ourcoloradohomes.com. And don't forget, you can always shoot us an email to frontrangefacts@gmail.com, and check out our most recent Get Real with Blockchain podcast with Elliot Eisenberg, the Bowtie Economist. It's a great little listen.
If you never get enough of us, that one will definitely help. So we'll see you next time. Thank you so much for joining us again today.
Happy 4th of July.